This story is very meaningful. Everyone should hear it. Listen to Brian tell the story. My name is David Miller. I'm 35, a software engineer who spent the last 7 years building a life with my wife, Helen. We met at a mutual friend's barbecue, her laugh cutting through the smoky air like a melody I couldn't shake. She's 34, a marketing whiz with a smile that could sell you anything, and for a while, I thought we had it all. A cozy house, plans for kids, a future we'd sketched out over late night coffee. But that was before Colorado, before the reunion, before I found out the woman I loved had been lying to my face. It started with a text that hit me like a punch to the gut. Helen had been gone 2 days, off to her 10-year college reunion in Colorado. A trip we'd planned together until she told me the organizers had banned spouses due to venue limits. I'd bought it, stayed home to fix the leaky sink and catch up on work. Then my phone buzzed. It was Mark Reynolds, a college buddy of Helen's I'd met at our wedding. Dude, Helen's here with Tyler. They're glued together. Thought you should know. Attached was a photo. Helen, radiant, laughing. Tyler's arm slung around her shoulders like it belonged there. My stomach dropped. Tyler Grayson, her ex from college, the guy she'd dated for 3 years before they split senior year. She'd told me he was in Europe. She'd lied. I sat there staring at that photo, my hands trembling. The TV blared some dumb sitcom in the background, but all I could hear was my own heartbeat thudding in my ears. I tried to rationalize it. Maybe it was just a friendly reunion moment, caught at the wrong angle. Helen's smile, Tyler's arm, the way they leaned into each other. It could be nothing, right? But the pieces didn't fit. 6 weeks earlier, Helen had been all smiles, planning the trip with me. It's a chill weekend, she'd said, perched on the couch with a glass of wine, her bare feet tucked under her, the soft glow of the lamp catching the gold in her hair. Everyone's bringing their partners. Come with me, David. It'll be fun. I'd grinned, hooked by the idea of hiking in Colorado, meeting her old crew. We'd booked flights. I'd bought new boots, dark brown leather ones I'd broken in stomping around the backyard, and we'd spent nights flipping through her college photos. She'd pointed out Mark and his wife Jennifer, laughing about how Mark had spilled beer on her dress at their wedding, and Carlos, the guy who ran charity marathons and once dragged Helen along for a 5K she swore she'd never repeat. Tyler, though, not a word, not once. Those nights had felt warm, easy. We'd sprawled on the rug, her old photo album between us, her finger-tracing faces frozen in time. That's Jennifer, she'd said, tapping a shot of a brunette in a denim jacket, smirking at the camera. She's a riot, kept Mark in line back then. I'd nodded, imagining meeting them, swapping stories over beers. But now, with Mark's text lighting up my phone, that warmth curdled into something sour. I scrolled back to the photo, zoomed in. Tyler's hand wasn't just resting on her, it was possessive, fingers curling around her shoulder like he'd done it 1,000 times. My throat tightened. I knew that grip. I'd held her like that. I stood, pacing the living room, the carpet muffling my steps. The house felt too big without her, the silence pressing in. I grabbed my laptop, pulled up our shared calendar. There it was, Colorado reunion, dates blocked out, a little hiking boot emoji she'd added next to my name. I'd been part of this. So why was I here, alone, while she was there with him? I called her, my thumb hesitating over the screen before hitting dial. It rang twice. Hey babe, she answered, her voice bright, a little breathless, like she'd just laughed. Background noise, music, chatter, filtered through. Hey, I said, forcing calm. How's it going? So fun, she said. We hiked this morning, God, my legs are killing me, and now we're at a cookout. The lodge is gorgeous, David. You'd love it. Yeah? I leaned against the counter, staring at the sink I'd promised to fix. Who's there? Oh, you know, the usual. Mark, Jennifer, Carlos. Bunch of people I haven't seen in forever. She laughed, but it sounded off, too sharp. Tyler? I asked, keeping it light, like I didn't care. A beat. Then two. No, she said finally, her tone flattening. He's in Europe. Couldn't make it. Huh. Okay. I swallowed, my mouth dry. Glad you're having fun. Miss you, she said quickly, like an afterthought, then hung up before I could reply. I stared at the phone, her words echoing. Europe. Bullshit. I opened my laptop again, logged into our phone account, something I'd never done before, but the itch wouldn't let go. There it was, a number I didn't recognize, calls stretching back weeks, some short, some long, the longest a 47-minute stretch the day before she left. My pulse raced. I texted Mark. "This Tyler's number?" His reply came fast. "Yep, back from London 6 months ago. Divorced. Sorry, man." The air sucked out of the room. I sank onto the couch, the photo album still open on the coffee table, Helen's younger self grinning up at me. Who was this woman I'd married? I needed air, answers, something. I grabbed my jacket and drove to Cassie's, my sister's apartment, a 20-minute blur of headlights and half-formed thoughts. She opened the door in sweatpants, her dark hair pulled back, glasses slipping down her nose. "David," she frowned, stepping aside. "You okay?" "No, I said, dropping my bag by her couch. "Helen's lying. Tyler's there. Mark sent me this." I shoved my phone at her, the photo glaring between us. Cassie studied it, her lips pressing into a thin line. She sat me down, poured us both coffee, black, no sugar, the way we'd drunk it since we were kids, sneaking it from Dad's pot, and listened as I spilled it all. The trip planning, the sudden spouse ban, the calls. She flipped through the printouts I'd brought, her lawyer eyes scanning every detail. "Slow down," she said finally, setting the papers down. "You don't know everything yet. Could be nothing." "Nothing," I snapped, my voice cracking. "She lied about Tyler, Cassie. Told me he's in Europe. Mark saw them together, alone." She sighed, leaning back. "I get it. It looks bad. But 7 years, David. You don't torch that on a hunch. Wait till she's back. Hear her out." "And if she lies again?" I asked, my hands balling into fists. "Then you've got me," she said, her voice steel. "We'll figure it out." I stayed at her place, the couch lumpy but better than our empty bed. Helen's texts trickled in, group shots, vague having a blast updates, nothing real. I dug deeper, found reunion posts on social media. Helen and Tyler, always near each other, his hand on her back in one, their heads close in another, whispering like the rest of the world didn't exist. My chest burned. I couldn't wait. I called Mark again, told him to meet me. He suggested a bar near his office, a grimy joint called Rusty's with neon signs flickering outside, casting jagged red and blue shadows across the cracked parking lot. The air smelled of stale beer and gasoline as I pushed through the heavy door, the hum of a jukebox playing some old Springsteen tune cutting through the low murmur of voices. Mark was already there, tucked into a booth in the back, his broad shoulders hunched like he carried the weight of what he'd seen. Jennifer sat beside him, his wife, a sharp-eyed brunette who'd always struck me as someone who didn't miss a thing. Her hair was pulled into a tight ponytail, and her leather jacket creaked as she leaned forward, sizing me up with a look that said she'd already decided I needed saving. They slid into the booth across from me, Mark looking guilty. Jennifer all business, her fingers drumming on the scarred wooden table. "You look like hell," Jennifer said, her voice cutting straight through the noise. No preamble. She slid a coaster toward me, a silent order to sit. "Drink?" "Beer," I muttered, dropping into the seat, my hands still shaky from the drive. The waitress, a wiry woman named Tina, according to her chipped name tag, ambled over, her peroxide blonde hair teased high, her eyes flicking between us like she sensed drama brewing. She plopped a bottle in front of me without a word and shuffled off, leaving a faint whiff of cigarette smoke behind. Mark cleared his throat, pushing his phone across the table. "More pics," he said, his voice low, almost apologetic. Jennifer took some too. I scrolled through them, my gut twisting with every swipe. Helen and Tyler at a picnic table, her head thrown back laughing, his hand brushing her arm. Another of them by a fire pit, her knee touching his, their faces lit by the glow. One from the hike, them peeling off from the group, Tyler's grin cocky as he glanced back. "They ditched us 15 minutes in," Mark said, sipping his drink, his eyes avoiding mine. "Said they left something in his cabin. Didn't see them again till after lunch." Jennifer leaned in, her voice dropping to a fierce whisper. "They weren't subtle, David. Helen moved her name card at dinner, sat right next to him, not her assigned spot. I watched her do it, smirking like it was some inside joke." I gripped the bottle, the cold glass biting into my palm. "Why'd you tell me?" I asked, my voice rough, barely audible over the jukebox switching to a slow Clapton riff. Mark shifted, uncomfortable. "We've been through this crap ourselves. Cheating. Years ago. Only made it because we didn't let it fester. And I'm not about to watch her play you for a fool," Jennifer cut in, her eyes flashing. "My sister's ex pulled the same reunion stunt. Just friends. My ass. Left her with 2 kids and a mortgage. I don't let liars slide." The door banged open then, and a guy stumbled in. Tall, lanky, with a scruffy beard and a faded Broncos cap pulled low. He scanned the room, then zeroed in on our booth, weaving through the tables with a sloppy grin. "Mark Reynolds," he slurred, clapping Mark on the shoulder. "And Jennifer, you badass. Who's this guy?" Mark tensed, forcing a smile. "Pete, hey, this is David. Helen's husband." Pete's grin faltered, his bleary eyes flicking to me. "Helen, huh? Saw her up in Colorado, with that Tyler dude. Real cozy." He laughed, a sharp barking sound, then caught himself, swaying slightly. "Shit, man, sorry, didn't mean... What did you see?" I cut in, my voice low, every muscle in my body locking tight. Pete scratched his neck, glancing at Mark like he'd stepped in something. Just them hanging out, all weekend. Thought they were a thing again, you know? Tyler bragged about it at the bar one night, said she was back in his orbit. His words. Jennifer's jaw clenched, and she shot Mark a look that said, "Told you." I felt the air shift, heavy with the weight of Pete's drunken spill. "When?" I pressed, leaning forward, my pulse hammering. "Friday, I think," Pete said, shrugging. "First night. He was trashed, showing off pics on his phone. Her laughing, him all over her. Didn't know you were, still in the picture." Tina reappeared, slamming a whiskey shot in front of Pete. "Drink or get out, Pete," she snapped, her voice gravelly. He grabbed it, downed it, and stumbled toward the bar, muttering apologies. I sat back, the booth creaking under me, my mind racing. Tyler bragging. Pics. First night. "He's a mess," Mark said, shaking his head. "But he's not lying. He was there, crashed the reunion with some locals." "Sounds like Tyler's proud of it," Jennifer said, her tone biting. "Helen's not just slipping, David. She's diving in." I barely heard them. My phone buzzed, a text from Helen. "Miss you. Cookout was great. Wish you were here." I stared at it, the words blurring, my chest caving in. I shoved it in my pocket and stood. "I need to see her." "Wait till she's back," Mark said, grabbing my arm. "Don't go up there half-cocked." "He's right," Jennifer added, softer now. "Plan it. Hit her with everything." I nodded, but my feet itched to move. I drove to Cassie's instead, her apartment a lifeline in the chaos. She was up, grading papers in her tiny kitchen, the smell of burnt toast lingering. I dumped it all on her. Mark, Jennifer, Pete, the photos, the texts. She listened, her pen tapping the table, her face hardening as I went. "Pete's a loose cannon," she said finally, pushing her papers aside. "But if he's right, Tyler's not hiding it, and Helen's not dumb enough to miss that." "She lied about him being there," I said, pacing her cramped living room, the rug bunching under my boots. "Europe, my ass. And those calls, 47 minutes, Cassie, the day before she left." She pulled out her laptop, logging into some legal database I didn't understand. "We can dig into Tyler if you want, see what he's been up to since London. But David, you need her story first. Corner her when she's home." "And if she lies again?" I asked, my voice breaking, the weight of 7 years pressing down. Cassie met my eyes, steady. "Then we fight. I've got your back." I crashed on her couch, the springs digging into my spine, Helen's texts lighting up my phone, group pics, generic updates, nothing personal. I scrolled social media, found more. Helen and Tyler by a lake, his arm around her waist, her smile wide and unguarded. My throat burned. I couldn't wait. The next day, I called Lila Brooks. I'd met her at Helen's company Christmas party last year. Dark hair, sharp wit, a smirk that said she knew more than she let on. She answered on the second ring, her voice smooth, teasing. "David Miller, to what do I owe this?" "Helen," I said, cutting through the fluff. "Colorado, what do you know?" A pause, then a low laugh. "Meet me. Park by my place. 6 p.m. Bring coffee." I got there early, the sky bruising purple, the air crisp. Lila sat on a bench, legs crossed, a cigarette glowing between her fingers. She took the coffee I offered, black like mine, and handed me a USB drive, her nails painted blood red. "Helen's careless," she said, exhaling smoke. "Texts with Tyler. She thought she deleted them from her work laptop. I pulled these before she wiped it." I plugged it into my phone with an adapter, my hands unsteady. The screen filled with messages. "Can't wait to see you," Helen wrote weeks ago. "David's out of the picture." Tyler. "Cabin, night 1, just us." My breath caught, sharp and painful. "Why?" I asked, staring at her, the USB hot in my palm. Lila shrugged, flicking ash. She screwed me over on a promotion last year. This, payback. Plus, you're too decent for her crap. Helen got home that night, her suitcase thumping in the hall, the sound echoing off the hardwood like a gavel dropping. I was at the kitchen table, papers and the USB laid out like a trap, each piece meticulously arranged, phone records stacked neatly, screenshots of her texts with Tyler glowing on my laptop screen. The reunion schedule Mark had emailed me pinned under a coffee mug stained with yesterday's dregs. The air smelled faintly of her lavender perfume, a scent that used to mean home but now twisted my stomach into knots. Her smile faded fast as she stepped into the light, her eyes darting from me to the evidence, her cheeks flushing pink, then draining white in seconds. "David, what's—" she started, her voice high, brittle, like glass about to shatter. "Sit," I said, my voice ice, cutting through her like a blade. I didn't move, didn't blink, just stared at her, my hands flat on the table, grounding me against the storm raging inside. "We're done playing." She hesitated, her fingers tightening on the strap of her purse, then sank into the chair across from me. Her movements slow, deliberate, like she was buying time. "What's all this?" she asked again, softer now, her eyes flicking to the papers, lingering on the USB drive like it was a live grenade. I could see the wheels turning behind her gaze, the panic bubbling up, but she kept her face smooth, that practiced calm she'd always wielded like a shield. "Tyler," I said, sliding the phone records toward her, the numbers circled in red ink. 12 calls in 3 weeks, 47 minutes the day before you left. Just a friend, right? Her lips parted, a quick breath escaping, but she rallied fast. "David, he's going through a divorce. We were catching up. That's it." Her voice was steady, almost convincing, but her hands betrayed her, twisting together in her lap, nails digging into her palms. "Catching up," I repeated, my tone flat, mocking. I tapped the laptop, the text Lila had given me filling the screen. "Can't wait to see you. David's out of the picture. Cabin, night 1. Sound familiar?" Her face crumpled then, the mask slipping, tears welling up as she shook her head. "It's not what you think," she said, her voice breaking. "We talked, that's all. The cabin was nothing, just grabbing something from his car. Mark got it wrong." "Mark saw you," I shot back, leaning forward, my pulse pounding in my ears. "An hour, Helen. You ditched the hike. And this?" I shoved the reunion schedule at her, the words "spouses welcome" glaring in bold. "No ban. You lied to keep me home." She flinched, tears spilling now, streaking her mascara in thin black rivers. "Okay, fine," she snapped, her voice rising, desperate. "There was no ban. I thought Tyler being there would be awkward. I didn't want drama. For us, David. I was protecting us." "Protecting us?" I laughed, a harsh, bitter sound that echoed in the quiet house. "By sneaking off with your ex? By planning it?" I pointed at the texts, my finger jabbing the screen. "Night 1, Helen. You set this up." "It was a mistake," she whispered, reaching for me across the table, her fingers trembling. "Nothing happened. I swear. I love you. 7 years, David. Don't throw it away over this." I pulled back, her touch like a burn I couldn't stand. "I'm done," I said, standing, grabbing my bag from the floor. The weight of it felt final, a lifeline out of this mess. She lurched up, following me to the hall, her sobs jagged, raw, chasing me as I headed for the door. "David, please," she cried, grabbing my arm, her nails digging in. "We can fix this. Kids, the house, our life. Don't walk away." I shook her off, my chest tight, her words clawing at me. "You walked away first," I said, my voice low, final. I opened the door, the cool night air hitting my face, and left, her cries fading as I climbed into my car. My phone buzzed, her number over and over, but I tossed it onto the passenger seat and drove to Cassie's, the road blurring through the tears I wouldn't let fall. At Cassie's, I collapsed on her couch, the springs creaking under me, my head spinning. She sat across from me in her tiny living room, her law books piled on the coffee table, a glass of bourbon in her hand she'd poured for me but I hadn't touched. She admitted the spouse thing was a lie, I said, my voice hoarse, recounting every word, but she swears nothing happened with Tyler. Cassie sipped her own drink, her eyes narrowing behind her glasses. "She's scrambling. Those texts say more than nothing. You've got enough to bury her, David, legally, emotionally. What do you want?" "I don't know," I admitted, rubbing my face, the stubble rough against my palms. 7 years, Cass. I can't just erase that." "You don't have to decide tonight," she said, her voice softening. "Sleep. We'll figure it out." But sleep didn't come. Helen's calls flooded my phone. 27 that night, 14 voicemails, her voice swinging from pleading to furious. "You're overreacting," she screamed in one. "I'm sorry, please come home," she sobbed in another. I deleted them, but the echoes lingered. The next day I met Mark and Jennifer again at Rusty's, needing more, anything to make sense of it. Pete was there too, slumped at the bar, nursing a whiskey, his Broncos cap tipped back. "Saw her again," he mumbled when I approached, his words slurring. "Helen. Called Tyler last night, heard him arguing on speaker. She was pissed he bragged." "Bragged about what?" I asked, my stomach dropping, leaning closer despite the sour reek of booze on him. "You know," Pete said, smirking, then catching himself. "Said they hooked up. First night. Tyler laughed about it. Old flames, new sparks. Some crap like that." I stepped back, my breath catching, Jennifer's hand on my shoulder steadying me as she joined us. "He's a drunk idiot," she said, glaring at Pete, "but Tyler's ego tracks. He'd flaunt it." "She denied it," I said, my voice hollow, the bar spinning around me. "She's lying," Jennifer snapped, her tone fierce. "I saw them, David. Every meal, every laugh, they weren't hiding." Mark nodded, grim. "Pete's right about the call. I heard from Carlos, too. He saw Tyler on the phone, ranting about Helen flipping out. Carlos, the charity guy. I hadn't thought of him since Helen's photo album nights." "Get him here," I said, my voice tight. Mark texted him, and 20 minutes later Carlos walked in. Short, stocky, his running shoes scuffing the floor, his face uneasy as he slid into the booth. "Didn't want to get involved," he said, rubbing his neck, avoiding my eyes. "But yeah, Tyler was loud about it. Said Helen was all his again. Showed me a pic, her in his cabin, on the couch, real close." "When?" I pressed, my hands clenching the table's edge. "Saturday," Carlos said. "After the hike. They didn't even try to be discreet." I sat back, the air sucked out of me. Jennifer cursed under her breath. Mark shook his head and Pete just watched, bleary-eyed, like it was a show. I thanked them, left, and drove aimlessly. The city lights streaking past, my mind a tangle of Helen's tears and Tyler's smirk. Lila called the next day. "Got more," she said, her voice clipped. We met at the park again, her smoking, me clutching coffee I didn't drink. She handed me a notebook, handwritten pages, Helen's scrawl. "Found it in her desk at work," Lila said, smirking. "She's been journaling. Read it." I did right there, the words slicing me open. "Tyler's back, feels like college. David doesn't suspect. Cabin tonight. Need this." Dates matched. Plans matched. My hands shook, the notebook slipping to the bench. "She played me," I whispered, the truth sinking in, cold and heavy. "Yep," Lila said, flicking her cigarette away. "Told you. She's sloppy." Helen showed up at Cassie's that night, banging on the door, her hair wild, eyes red. Cassie let her in, reluctantly standing by like a guard. "I messed up," Helen sobbed, dropping to her knees in front of me. "It was one night, David. One stupid, drunk night. I stopped it. I love you." "One night?" I held up the notebook, my voice shaking with rage. "You planned it, Helen. Weeks. You wanted him." She froze, then lunged for it, but Cassie stepped in, blocking her. "Get out," I said, my voice dead. "We're done." She left screaming, and I sat there, the notebook in my lap, the pieces finally fitting. Too late, too broken. Her voice echoed down Cassie's hallway, shrill and desperate, fading into the night until it was just the hum of the fridge and the faint tick of a clock somewhere in the apartment. Cassie stood by the door, arms crossed, her face a mix of pity and resolve as she locked the deadbolt with a sharp click. I didn't move, couldn't, my hands gripping the edges of Helen's journal like it was the last tether to a life I didn't recognize anymore. Her handwriting sprawled across the pages, messy, frantic, confessions she'd never meant for me to see. "Tyler gets me like David never will," one line read, dated 2 weeks before the trip. "Can't wait to feel alive again," another, scrawled the night she left. Every word was a knife, twisting deeper, carving out the trust I'd built with her over 7 years. Cassie sank onto the couch beside me, her shoulder brushing mine, a quiet anchor in the chaos. "You okay?" she asked, her voice soft but steady, the kind she used with clients on the edge of collapse. "No," I said, my throat raw, the bourbon she'd poured earlier still untouched on the coffee table. "I don't even know who she is, Cass. This—" I tapped the notebook, my fingers leaving faint smudges on the paper. "This isn't my wife." "She hasn't been for a while," Cassie said, her tone matter-of-fact, cutting through my haze. "You've got everything now. Texts, photos, this. What's next?" I stared at the ceiling, the cracks in the plaster blurring as my eyes burned. "Divorce," I said finally, the word heavy. Final. "I can't." I can't fix this. She nodded, pulling her laptop over, already in lawyer mode. I'll draft papers tomorrow. We'll keep it clean. Irreconcilable differences. Split the assets. You sure? Yeah, I said, my voice hollow. I'm sure. Sleep came in fits that night, broken by dreams of Helen's laugh morphing into Tyler's smirk, their shadows tangled in some Colorado cabin I'd never see. My phone stayed silent. No more calls, no texts, just the weight of her absence settling in. The next morning, I went back to our house, my house now, I guess, to grab more clothes. The place felt like a museum, every corner holding ghosts of us. The couch where we'd binged movies, the kitchen where we'd danced to bad 80s pop while cooking. I avoided the bedroom, couldn't face the bed we'd shared, and was stuffing shirts into a duffel when the doorbell rang. I opened it, expecting a neighbor or a delivery, but it was Jamie, Tyler's buddy from college, a wiry guy with a patchy beard and nervous eyes I'd met at our wedding. He stood there, hands shoved in his pockets, shifting on his feet like he'd rather be anywhere else. "Hey, David," he said, his voice low. "Can we talk?" "What do you want?" I asked, my grip tightening on the doorframe, suspicion flaring. "It's about Helen," he said, glancing over his shoulder like he thought someone might be watching. "And Tyler. I heard stuff. Thought you should know." I stepped aside, letting him in, my pulse kicking up. He perched on the edge of the couch, rubbing his hands together, his knee bouncing. "Tyler called me last night," he started, avoiding my eyes. "After Helen chewed him out, I guess. He was drunk, rambling. Said they hooked up, full on, not just a kiss. First night of the reunion. Bragged about it, man, like it was a trophy." My stomach lurched, the air thinning. "He told you that?" I asked, my voice tight, leaning against the wall to stay upright. "Yeah," Jamie said, wincing. "Showed me texts, too. She sent him stuff during the trip. Flirty, explicit. Said your marriage was dead anyway. I'm sorry, David. I didn't want to pile on, but..." "Why tell me?" I cut in, my hands clenching, the room tilting. He shrugged, finally meeting my gaze. "Tyler's an ass. Always has been. And you were cool at the wedding, you know? Didn't deserve this." I nodded, numb, and he left, his footsteps fading down the walk. I sank to the floor, Jamie's words looping with Helen's notebook, a chorus of betrayal I couldn't unhear. I called Cassie, told her everything, my voice shaking as I paced the living room. "Don't confront her yet," she warned, her tone sharp over the line. "This is gold if she fights the divorce, adultery, proof. Let me handle it." "She won't fight," I said, bitter. "She'll lie more." "Then we're ready," Cassie replied. "Sit tight." But sitting tight wasn't my style anymore. I drove to Rusty's that night, needing noise, people, anything to drown the silence. Mark and Jennifer were there, huddled at the bar, Tina pouring shots with her usual scowl. A new face joined them, Sarah, a redhead with freckles and a quick laugh, Carlos's sister, who'd tagged along to the reunion. She waved me over, her smile fading when she saw my face. "You look like death," she said, blunt, sliding a beer my way. "Helen?" "Yeah," I said, taking it, the cold glass grounding me. "You were there. What did you see?" Sarah hesitated, glancing at Mark, who nodded. "They were all over each other," she said finally, her voice low. "Not just the cabin. Every night, David. Dancing at the bonfire, sneaking off. Tyler told Carlos she was his again. I thought you two were done the way she acted. She didn't tell anyone I was home," I said, the pieces clicking, sharp and cruel. "Said I had work." "Bitch," Jennifer muttered, slamming her glass down. "She staged it." "Carlos didn't want to snitch," Sarah added, her eyes soft. "But I told him you deserved the truth. We all saw it." I thanked her, the beer untouched, and stepped outside, the night air biting my skin. My phone buzzed. Lila again. "Check your email," she said when I picked up, her voice smug. I did, right there in the parking lot, the neon flickering overhead. Attached was an audio file, Lila's work, a voicemail Helen had left on her office line by mistake. "Tyler, I can't stop thinking about you." Helen's voice purred, slurred with wine. "David's clueless. We'll figure it out." Dated the second night of the reunion. I played it again, then again, each word a hammer to my chest. I forwarded it to Cassie, my hands trembling, and called her. "She's done," I said, my voice breaking. "File it, all of it." "Got it," Cassie said, fierce. "We'll nail her." Helen showed up at my new apartment 2 days later, a cramped one-bedroom I'd rented near work, the walls still bare. She'd gotten in somehow, a neighbor buzzing her up, and stood in my kitchen with flowers and takeout, her eyes red but defiant. We need to talk, she said, setting the bag down, her voice trembling with forced calm. No, we don't, I said, crossing my arms, leaning against the counter. I've got everything. Texts, notebook, your voicemail to Tyler. It's over. Her face paled, but she rallied, stepping closer. It was a mistake, David. One night, drunk, stupid. I stopped it. I love you. One night? I laughed, cold, pulling out my phone, playing the voicemail. Her voice filled the room, undeniable, and she froze, her hands flying to her mouth. Where? She stammered, then switched gears, tears spilling. Lila did this, didn't she? She hates me. It's not what it sounds like. It's exactly what it sounds like, I said, my voice steady now, the anger burning clean. You planned it. You wanted him. Get out. She grabbed the flowers, hurled them at me, petals scattering across the floor, and stormed out, her sobs echoing down the hall. My neighbor, Mrs. Garcia, a nosy widow with a yappy dog, poked her head out, frowning. Trouble, hun? She asked, her voice thick with curiosity. Over now, I said, shutting the door, my hands shaking as I swept up the mess. Cassie filed the papers the next day, the evidence stacked high. Helen fought at first, claiming I'd fabricated it all, but the voicemail broke her. She signed within a week, the house sold fast, proceeds split. I kept the watch she'd hidden, my granddad's, found in her things, and moved on, or tried to, the echoes of her lies still ringing in my ears. Cassie came back into the room, her footsteps soft on the hardwood, a bottle of water in her hand she pressed into mine. You did the right thing, she said, her voice firm, the lawyer in her taking over even as her eyes softened with worry. She's got nothing left to stand on. Doesn't feel right, I muttered, twisting the cap off but not drinking, the cold plastic grounding me. Feels like I lost anyway. You didn't lose, she said, sitting beside me, her shoulder brushing mine. You found the truth. That's winning, David. Messy, ugly winning. I nodded, but it didn't sink in. Not yet. The next few days blurred together, a haze of packing boxes and dodging Helen's calls. She texted nonstop. Apologies, accusations, links to counselors I'd never see. But I forwarded them to Cassie, letting her build the case. The evidence piled up like bricks. Lila's USB, the notebook, Sarah's story, Jamie's reluctant spill, that damning voicemail. Helen fought the divorce at first, showing up at Cassie's office with a stack of papers and a lawyer of her own, a slick guy named Greg with a cheap suit and a smug grin. Irreconcilable differences don't cut it, Greg said, leaning back in his chair like he'd already won. She wants mediation. Cassie didn't flinch. Adultery does, she shot back, sliding the voicemail transcript across the table, her voice ice cold. Recorded, dated, admissible. Sign, or we go to court. Greg's smirk faded, and Helen's face crumpled, her hands twisting in her lap like they had that night at the kitchen table. She signed the next day, no fight left, the term simple. House sold, proceeds split, no alimony. I didn't care about the money, just wanted out. The house went up fast, 2 bids over asking within a week. We met at a coffee shop to sort the final details, Helen's parents tagging along, their faces etched with guilt and hope. Her mom, Diane, a petite woman with graying hair and a trembling lip, tried to bridge the gap. Marriages have bumps, she said, her voice cracking as she stirred her tea. We almost split once, forgave him. You could too. Not this, I said, my tone flat, staring at the steam curling off my untouched coffee. Not lies like these. Her dad, Ron, a burly guy with a beard and a quiet demeanor, nodded slowly. We didn't know, he said, his voice low, rough. She told us after. We're sorry, David. Helen sat between them, silent, her hair shorter now, her frame thinner, like the weight of it all had carved her down. She slid a small box across the table, my granddad's watch, the antique one I'd thought lost months ago, its brass face scratched but warm in my hand. Found it packing, she said, her voice barely a whisper. Hid it after a fight. Forgot. I took it, my fingers closing around it, the last piece of me she'd held onto. Thanks, I said, no warmth, just fact. She opened her mouth, then closed it, her eyes searching mine for something I couldn't give. Can we stay in touch? She asked finally, tentative, as we stood to leave. Friends, maybe? No, I said, simple, final, walking away without looking back. Her parents' footsteps followed her out, their murmurs fading into the street noise. The divorce finalized a week later, papers crisp and official in my hand as I stood in my new apartment, the walls still bare, the furniture sparse. Cassie dropped by with pizza and beer, her way of celebrating, though it didn't feel like a win. "You're free," she said, cracking open a bottle, her grin wide but her eyes careful. "Free," I echoed, the word tasting strange, hollow. I took a sip, the bitterness sharp on my tongue, and stared out the window at the city lights blinking in the dusk. Free but fractured, the pieces of me scattered like those petals on the floor. A month later, I got an email from Helen. Subject line, "The whole truth." I almost deleted it, my finger hovering over the trash icon, but curiosity, or masochism, won out. "I slept with Tyler twice," she wrote, the words stark, unadorned. "Planned it before I left. Lied to you, to myself. I'm sorry, not for forgiveness, just to stop hiding." She detailed it. Night 1 in the cabin, premeditated, not drunk. Night 2 after the farewell dinner, a reckless encore. She'd fought the divorce to avoid facing it, she said, but Tyler's call to me had cracked her open. She was in therapy now, figuring out why she'd burned us down. I read it twice, my chest tight but not breaking, the ache dulled by time and truth. I forwarded it to Cassie, who called instantly. "You okay?" she asked, her voice sharp with concern. "Yeah," I said, surprised it was true. "Suspected it all along. Just done now." "Good," she said, fierce. "Keep it that way." I didn't reply to Helen, didn't need to. Her sister Beth called the next day, sweet Beth who'd always brought cookies to our family dinners, her voice soft with regret. "She told Mom and Dad everything," she said. "They're ashamed they pushed you. I'm sorry, David. We didn't see." "Not your fault," I said, my tone gentle, the last tie to her family fraying loose. "Take care, Beth." The house sold that week, money wired to my account, a clean break. I bought a new chair for the apartment, a small rebellion against the emptiness, and started fixing up a buddy's basement for extra cash, my hands busy while my mind settled. Lila texted once, cryptic. "Heard you're single. Drinks?" And I laughed, a real laugh, the first in months. Maybe I'd call her back, maybe not. The future was mine now, uncharted, raw. Looking back, I learned the hard way. Trust isn't just love, it's truth, and when it's gone, no amount of history can glue it back. Helen taught me that. Her lie's a brutal lesson in seeing what's real. I never saw it coming, but I survived it, scarred but standing. If you've been here, caught a spouse lying, watched your life flip upside down, tell me your story. How'd you get through? What broke you? What built you back? I'm here, listening, because this mess showed me we're not alone in it. Drop a line, share your scars. Maybe we'll heal together.